Okay, starting at 11 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tharsis. We're still gonna try and get a successful run with the commander, and as such, this will be the loadout we'll be going with. So we've got Niki as the commander, Joy as the technician, Pacal as the mechanic, and Jing as the captain. So it's a bit different from last time where I went with John instead of Joy, and I don't quite remember sort of like the why I replaced John with Joy. I guess it was mostly because I sort of just wanted to try different combinations and just see which one might work best, because basically for this one the constraint was just to actually just have the commander and try and get him through one successful run, because unfortunately I ended up killing the commander on my last video in order to make the mission successful. So I was basically thinking, well, what's one way we can sort of guarantee that the commander can fulfill his best potential by attributing maybe a lower dice to his 4 repair ability. And I sort of was thinking, well, if we had Joy to bank assist whenever possible, then it makes it more likely that we were able to utilize the commander to his full potential, because then by avoiding the crappy dice, he can potentially roll a better one, and if not, there's still the commander's own unique ability to essentially mop up the rest. So it's probably not the most straightest of thinking there, but that was most likely my thinking at the time. So in this first week, we're able to repair all the modules fairly cleanly without much issue, and certainly one of the things, now that we don't have the psychologist, one of the things we must take a little more care of is stress, because definitely when everyone's stressed out, some of the options at the end of the week becomes quite problematic. So 9 weeks to Mars, choosing to get 1 dice, because dice is probably one, if not the most important resource in this. And with 9 weeks to Mars, we've got a large fire in the again, hopefully I remember this right, the operations module at the bottom, which is really not very comfortable, not very comforting to look at. So thankfully we have Joy, so if things go well, we could potentially bank up some assists before we send someone in there. So going with the captain first to actually just probably bank some assists, even though one will be wasted, but more importantly to get an additional dice to both Pacal and Joy. So looking at the dice roll, we can only get a bunch of assists, or we can get 1 additional die. Naturally, since we value dice more, it makes more sense to go with that. Also because Pacal and Joy both have a fairly significant, enough HP such that you still need a fairly unlucky dice roll in order to, you still need a fairly unlucky dice roll, but the chances are less probable, loosely speaking. So, moving on, we're having Joy move to the maintenance module and hoping to bank some more assists and to repair the module entirely, which we can do, which is certainly a very comforting feeling. So, if you look at the arrangement of the dice, it makes more sense to put the 6, 4, and 2 in, so with that we can use the 5 dice for getting some assists, which will definitely be much more helpful. With 3 dice in research, there's really not much we can do at the moment, but certainly the repair modules may be handy. And now with 2 assists, I'm feeling a bit more comfortable in moving someone down to the operators module in order just to deal with the fire. And thankfully, 1 assist helps us in preventing 2 damage being done to Pacal. So here I'm feeling a bit nervous, a bit contentious, so I put 1 dice in because it basically 4 is sort of good enough, but you don't want. But I sort of was thinking, okay, what's the chances that I may get a really crappy roll and such that Pacal may, what's the chances that I'll get such a crappy roll such that Pacal would die? And the chances were pretty slim, so I decided to sort of just gamble on that front. Thankfully, we can use the special tools, but you can sort of see me here just thinking about, okay, what's the best way to distribute my dice? Because using the 7 repair module, we can put the 2 in, but then the 4 dice goes to waste, which is which is certainly not the best option. And so, again, it's kind of an optimization problem, if I may pull something from my mathematics knowledge. So, thankfully, replacing the 7 repair module was another 2 research module, which means that none of the dice will go to waste. Which means that we can spend some time with Niki. Spend some time with Niki in the life support module, just getting his dice up for the following week. Since we have nothing to repair, we may as well just roll 1 dice to gain 2 for the additional week and bank a 5 dice in research, which is certainly a reasonable investment that is not wasted at all. So we at the end of the with 8 weeks to Mars, and both are choosing no movement damage. And given how much health everyone has, it made more sense to opt for missing health instead of missing dice, because naturally we are going to favor dice much more over health, especially if everyone is sporting a reasonable amount of health. Of course, if everyone was only on 1 health, then certainly the decision would be somewhat different. So a fairly unlucky roll with Pacal down in the operations module, with pretty much all the dice hitting some kind of stasis, but to be honest, given the chance that it was 1 in 2 of hitting a stasis dice, it was kind of to be expected at some point. But thankfully, the following roll we get a double 6, in which the repair module gets a significant amount of repairs done, which should allow us to deal with both damage modules fairly easily. So moving Joy down to the operations module, I hope, or perhaps maybe someone else, depending on what I do, really, since as you probably am aware by now, I'm sort of doing this as a post-commentary and sort of just watching my play and critiquing my own play as well. With 2 stasis dice, at least the module was able to be repaired completely, and we can bank the 6 either on assist or in research. I would think the research is probably the more viable option, since the damage in the greenhouse is that it's only stasis, so it's not as important to get assist for that component. So, question is now whether we go for the captain or the commander, and it's worth pointing out that you could repair this module with a double 6, but chances are more likely that you'll only be able to repair it with 3 dice. So with Niki's roll, and since we can't really spend the 2 on research, it makes sense to put the 2 into repair, and hopefully we roll the 4 for something a bit better. With the 1 not being able to repair the module completely, but a lucky roll in the sense that we can get 6 research, which means our disaster reduce. Being able to repair 28 points of damage is definitely a very handy what's the alarm? No, not alarm button. A very handy get out of jail free card, so to speak. So with the captain rolling a double 4, we may as well grab some food and repair this module completely. And with a 5, being able to keep the captain topped off with 5 dice, and to give Niki an additional dice for the following week. And unfortunately, the 1 dice that's in stasis will unfortunately have to go to waste, but or not, in that being able to give everyone 1 health without any of it going to waste is certainly a little more, little less wasteful, really. So it's 7 weeks to Mars. It's 1 ship or 2 health, which can be a bit tricky. But given that everyone's pretty good on health and we're fairly low on ship hull damage, it kind of makes sense to aim for getting some additional ship HP. So, with some interesting events with the object breach in the life support module, with 25 and 1 injury, 1 void, and 1 stasis dice, certainly a bit of a tricky situation. If we had kept all 6 dice for the disaster reduce module, then we could have just completely repaired that module in 1 go, and possibly we could have moved Pacal over there to completely repair the module using the research, and then to boost up his dice for the following week. But nevertheless, moving the captain down to the operations module gives him an opportunity to give Joy and Pacal an additional dice, and also to repair this component. With a fairly good roll with 2 6s and 2 5s, we can definitely repair this module completely. Of course, the question now becomes, which way should we distribute the dice? So, it's worth pointing out that you will need to use 3 dice minimum, and that there is no there is no optimal combination, but thankfully with another roll possible, we were able to reroll that one into a higher number, such that we were able to repair the module completely with just one person and bank some additional dice on reducing stress and giving one additional dice to both Pacal and Joy. I will say the captain is definitely one of the most valuable members that you can have on the team, and as such, going on a run without a captain is definitely going to be very difficult. Another lucky roll by Joy with 3 5s and a 6, which will all obviously be banked into repair, and hopefully by rerolling that one into a higher number, Joy may be able to repair that module completely, but avoid snatches the dice from us before Joy is able to repair that module completely. Nevertheless, being able to repair the components that will contribute to ship hull damage is certainly much more important, and thankfully with 2 personnel, it is not that big of an issue. So with Pacal rolling a 1, 3, and a 5, the 5 can go into getting an additional ship HP, with the 1 and the 3 repairing the module completely. While it may not be the most efficient use of dice, rerolling potentially gives the chance for something worse. So there's definitely a sort of a safety level in decision making that is certainly important to think about. So repairing this module with 3 dice is certainly a bit tricky, but it looks like it is completely doable by using all 3 of Niki's dice plus his, well, not necessarily his ability, but definitely it is the average situation in which we can come to expect. So there is really nothing much to grumble about this particular week. Everything was handled fairly well with a couple of lucky dice rolls, really mitigating some of the potential issues that could have come from having to from leaving some of these modules unattended. So the question here whether I should give an additional food to Pacal or Niki. Naturally, since our ship's HP is fairly low, it makes sense to go with Pacal. So 6 weeks to Mars, we've got a CDA fire in the greenhouse and lots of void. So you can see me sort of just hovering over the error check to prevent the void for this week running. And I think that is probably that's probably an option we should take for this week, because with the 4, 5, and 6 and void, it's basically our 1 in 2 chance for any dice roll to completely disappear, and we do not want any of that at all. So moving Pacal into the greenhouse with 3 of 5 dice roll potentially disappearing into the void. Man, aren't we glad we took that prevent void this week. So with a 4 and rolling another 2 5s, we're able to repair this module completely with 1 additional dice to spare to repairing the ship and getting 1 additional HP. I will say that's definitely a fairly lucky dice roll, and in that, this is definitely one of the more luckier runs, so to speak. So the question becomes who should I put next, especially when the operation module only has 10 points of damage that needs repairing. Naturally, you sort of want to have someone who can sort of contribute to the ship in a different way, but with a not so great roll, while we can repair that component completely, the additional dice roll not giving us as much luck either, but nevertheless we were still able to repair the module completely, so we should not be worrying about that too much. Now we've got the captain and a fairly tricky airflow fail in the medical bay, which with the captain on 2 HP, potentially rolling double 2s with 5 dice is definitely more than 1 over 36 chance because of the different possible dice combinations that you can roll. So definitely it makes sense to go with Niki first and to hopefully just do the best we can with what we have, even though we've only got 2 dice. And of course, Niki has the advantage in that if you roll a 4 or lower, you can at least re-roll to get a higher number, and if not, you can just use Niki's own unique abilities. So with the captain being on low HP, it makes sense to not make him attempt to repair that module for fear of killing him. And thankfully, with a 222 in the greenhouse, this will allow us to really. Bank some food, even though we may. Well, Niki would definitely need. Well, pardon me. Niki definitely needs a boosting dice, and so getting some through, especially with this lucky roll, was certainly the aim of the captain. So, with one airflow fail and with 2 damage, with the ship remaining on 1 damage is definitely a little tricky. And at the end of the week, at 5 weeks to Mars, both options had -1 dice for each of the 2 crew members within those decision tree. My apologies. So it was really the lesser of 2 evils, and since you cannot go below 1 dice, potentially I might be losing 1 dice when I selected both the captain and Niki, so that is certainly probably the better decision to make, so to speak. So having Niki repair the medical bay with a 1, 3, and a 4, and hopefully I'm aiming to roll a higher number, but instead I roll another one, which disappears into the void, but nevertheless Niki was able to completely repair the rest of the medical bay with his current set of dice. -1 health all is not a problem as long as the captain doesn't take an additional point of damage, which will not be happening since the other damage module is stasis only and does not really harbor any health damage, and it's just really more ship hull damage, which we certainly do need to pay attention to, but is easily dealt with. So with Joy in the life support module, hoping we can get a bigger number, and to repair this module with only 2 dice, we get just that with 2 5s, and we can use the 2 to get some additional dice for Joy the following week. So that leaves the greenhouse controls being unresponsive, in which we have Pacal and the captain. Naturally, going with the captain first gives us the option to perhaps give Pacal an additional dice. So, but unfortunately, our luck does not really hold out for us too much. So, but with the triple trees, we could definitely bank some more food. Although, the question becomes whether we actually need the food for the following week. And if I look at everyone now, definitely the captain can definitely appreciate an additional food for the following week. And given that we're still like about 5 weeks to Mars, since we don't have anything that will reduce the amount of food we take, it's really something that we can bank for later. So here I've sort of realized that Pacal is really not going to be able to completely repair this module unless we get a really lucky dice roll. So thankfully with Pacal's ability and by putting a 5 dice to his repair, we can definitely save the ship from complete destruction for at least 1 more week. So it's 4 weeks to Mars, and thinking one ship HP is definitely going to be much more useful because it would save me from having to move someone down to the operations module, no, not the operations module, the maintenance module to get some additional ship HP. So I'm sort of hovering I'm sort of taking my mouse on a piece of meat, hovering over Niki, asking myself whether I should bother with cannibalism yet. Certainly it would be very nice to top people's dice off. Some may ask why I'm not using the food, because part of the food would go to waste. And the other thing, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is that if you have one person who is not as stressed out as everyone else, then chances are you will still have a fairly good decision to make by the end of that week or by the start of next week, which I'm not actually sure how the timeline goes in that regard, but perhaps it's really not that much of an issue since it's just kind of just a countdown timer where the week as a unit of measurement is fairly arbitrary. So moving Joy into the greenhouse and hopefully attempting to repair the greenhouse module completely gives us not much luck on the first roll, but with the double ones we could potentially harvest more food for the following weeks, but I don't think that will really work out for us. But unfortunately the second dice roll really doesn't do us any favors. So the question becomes, what can I do? I can definitely use the duct tape, however, and actually none of the dice ends up going to waste, which is certainly a very satisfying feeling. But with 3 damage modules, 2 of them potentially doing 2 damage to the ship, certainly we're gonna need a bit of attention to those. So question is, who should we go with next? Also pointing out that the life support module is damaged, meaning that when Pacal and Jean pass through, they will definitely take some health damage. Jean, obviously we do not want to move into the maintenance module, otherwise he will have 1 HP and we could potentially roll a 2, and with 5 dice the chance of that happening is much greater, which means we'll be putting our captain in not a very good situation. So Pacal rolling 2 6s and 5 and 2 3s, which are locked in by stasis. Nevertheless, with 1 6, 1 5 and 1 3, we can repair that module completely and hopefully not make any of the other dice go to waste. Although it looks like the 3 dice will end up going to waste since we don't really have a sufficient research project to use the current dice that we have banked. Nevertheless, it is relieving that Pacal was able to repair the module completely on his own. So, and we were able to get 1 additional ship HP, which at the bare minimum causes minimal, at the bare minimum prevents the ship from being destroyed for that week. So we're having Niki repair the life support module. We can at least allow the captain to pass through to wherever we think might be great for him. Don't quite remember my line of thinking there, but thankfully with a fairly easy module, Niki was able to repair it fairly simply. I think it would make most sense to put the captain in the medical bay at this stage because we don't exactly want to risk the captain dying by rolling 2 2s, and certainly that's not a very risky decision, basically. We've got 3 banked up, so we don't need to worry about dice. We've got enough ship HP to survive us, so again, we don't need to worry about that too much. You can see me having put up the supplement thinking, well, 1 dice for all crews would be nice because the captain is on his own. We can't really get the captain to help out anyone by giving them additional dice. He will only be benefiting himself, which is not as great. And given that we put the captain in the medical bay, he's able to heal himself completely. And thankfully, we've got a call home, or either way, we had a call home or an anti-hemorrhage, which could have also been used. But now that we've got the captain healed himself completely, we don't really need to worry about that so much. So by using call home, we've definitely reduced the stress of 3 of the crew members from maximum. And here, this is what I was saying. The captain has probably got one of the better decisions. Well, I mean, preventing stasis is definitely nice, and but it's certainly the less risky decision in my opinion out of all 3. Although some may argue otherwise. And even though we've got prevent stasis, we've got 2 modules which include damage dice. So perhaps it was, if you're part of the pun here, it was definitely a roll of the dice, and in hoping that we will get more stasis damage in that regard. So here is kind of a tricky decision since I definitely do not want to move Pacal from where he is. But with that -1 dice all is definitely something we should attend to, especially when it's nearing the end of our mission. Thankfully, our prevent stasis comes in handy in preventing some of the dice from being locked in, but nevertheless the second roll doesn't give us much assistance, so it would have been nice to roll at least a 5 or above to at least gain 1 additional ship HP or to bank some assists. So nevertheless, we were able to use one of our research modules to give 3 health to Pacal, and as a result, none of the dice ends up going to waste. The -2 health all in the medical bay is definitely a potential concern as Niki is really... Niki is sitting at 1 HP, we definitely do not want him to die. So, but with 1 HP, he can't actually do much either, given that the modules surrounding him have injury dice. So, here, it makes sense to go with Joy next in order to bank up some assists, in order to prevent those injuries from happening. Unfortunately, that 1 dice will not be particularly useful right now. So, while I could have re-rolled it, I probably did not realize I could re-roll it, and I just ended up re-rolling my research project, which is certainly a viable option as well. So it's worth pointing out that the energy boost will not be particularly useful since I already have 2 food banked up. Repair arm would definitely be handy, and the small kit would definitely also be handy when I want to well, thankfully that 1 assist helped us out with that 3 dice, and it was definitely a more comfortable decision to make. Having the health recovery would basically mean Niki could survive a potential terrible roll next round, but nevertheless, Niki not having the best luck with dice this time round, but is able to still contribute a reasonable amount of repairs to the ship. So with 7, that's quite easily dealt with by 2 dice the following week. And we've got the captain remaining, and unfortunately, and now that we've got everyone's health up to a reasonable amount, we do not need to worry about having -2 health to all, so we can get the captain to deal with this module. But definitely one thing to point out is that we still have impending damage, and as such our priority will be on getting additional ship HP in order to survive that week. So you can imagine that throughout I've just been keeping the ship's HP at just pretty much the bare minimum in order for the ship to survive through to the following week. So with 4 options, I'm just taking a quick look and just wondering which one is probably the best option. I think it's worth pointing out again that the captain had the minimal stress, so again his decision ended up being the best option to take. So with plenty of injury modules, a prevent injury research might have been nice, but unfortunately that's not going to play. That's not in the cards for us. So certainly with a lot of injury dice and with Pacal and Joy on fairly low HP, it is certainly a bit worrying. It's certainly somewhat of a worrying situation. We've got a small kit as our research, which can help out a little, but still one extremely bad dice roll can cause someone to die. So certainly this is a very worrying situation, but right now we've got 1 assist, which we can definitely use to some extent. Of course, the question is, how should we use it? I think if I looked at it now, well, I'm not gonna lie, going first with the captain is probably the easiest decision, because the captain can deal with this space on his own, especially with 5 dice, and thankfully he's also able to contribute to ship repair in order to keep our ship surviving for the final week. And now the question is, how should we manage everyone else? You can sort of just, it's a very, very troublesome situation. We would love to have some additional assists, but we also need to repair the damage modules in the greenhouse and the medical bay. And so certainly it's a very, very worrying situation. So giving Joy 1 additional health, we have to take the chance. There's really no way to go about it, and hope that we don't get a crappy roll kills Joy, unfortunately, and which leaves us with Pacal and Niki, and certainly probably the most important module to deal with is the -2 health to everyone. So thankfully Niki does not pass. Thankfully Niki remains undamaged. We only need to roll a double trade for Niki to die at this point, but thankfully on this first roll, thankfully this module can be taken care of on this first roll, so we do not need to worry too much. Of course, the question is, how should I distribute the dice? And naturally it makes sense to put 2 into repairing the module and 2 into research. And now with Pacal, the question is, do we try and repair this with Pacal, or do we just try and bank some additional ship HP such that we can survive more ship damage in the final week? So here the aim is to get Pacal back up to full health so that he can survive whatever health damage he throws at us, and hopefully also rolling a 5 or 6, to which we do get in order to get some additional ship HP for the final week. It's also worth pointing out, as I pointed out before, we've got a repair arm which gives us +3 ship HP, which is definitely going to be very useful in a clutch situation. So you can see me, I just had the sedatives up, and then you can see me hovering over the repair arm, just thinking which one would probably be more important. So you can see me taking advantage of the repair arm and Pacal's unique ability in order to bank a load of ship HP, which will definitely survive us through the final week. So it is the final week, and what decisions do we have to make? Hopefully not a very tough one. Certainly looking at the options, you can see probably the captain has the captain and Niki's choices are pretty reasonable. It's worth pointing out that stress does not matter in the final week, since, unless you wanted to maximize the score at the end, because definitely there are points taken off for stress. So, -1 health for a crew or 3 health for me. I'm just wondering which one I ended up picking. Certainly the captain's decision makes more sense to choose, because the -1 dice, we can definitely use up the rest of our food and the cannibalism. And since stress doesn't matter, we may as well just eat up all the food and meat that we have remaining. So you can see me just sort of just thinking through that decision. And since someone has I don't even remember his name anymore. What was it? Since Joy has passed away, we can use her remains to top everyone's dice off, so that we can guarantee basically a successful, so that we can guarantee everyone having 5 dice, being alive, and getting through to flight control. Here, we do not need to worry about our ship's HP since we banked enough in the previous week. And, of course, the question is now who should go first, because movement damage is going to be a problem, since you can see the captain's taken 2 damage in order to move to flight control, but thankfully he's rolling a 5 dice, means that no one else moving to the flight control will be taking damage. So, that, right now it's just getting everyone to flight control, and getting the healthiest person to flight control, minimizing, excuse me, to minimize the movement damage, and really just surviving the mission, at which we are able to successfully do. So you can see me just rolling dice, banking something research, and just using up research points for whatever reason. And certainly it is pretty clear at this stage that I'm able to get all the 3 remaining crew, Pacal, Jing, and Niki, to safety. And of course, everything else now is just kind of a min-maxing, just getting more points, minimizing stress, and contributing to research. So there's really not much else that needs to be said. So it's kind of really a use up all the dice and try to maximize our points, which is again not really my thing, but certainly that's something that some people would definitely care about. So you can see me just using up the dice, getting hacks, getting assists, and just basically using up all the dice, which is, well, what else can you do? So this is the end of the mission with 3 damage modules, not that great, but more importantly, not everyone, pardon me, 3 people are able to survive. And since this is actually the first time I've actually completed this with 3 people remaining and going 1 dead, it's there's actually a different ending which I will stay quiet for. I do apologize for the lack of the audio, but certainly I will point out that right now there is a different ending. So I just need to get the ending with 2 people. Well, basically I just need to get through. Basically I just need to finish this mission with 2 people. So you can see my score, my final score at the end is not all that great, but obviously it's more important to complete the mission rather than maximizing my score. And of course, for of course, if you care about score, then there's really not much to say about that. So I'm quite happy with this run, and I'm really hoping that I can unlock the cannibal soon, although it's definitely going to take a while. I will be doing, I will attempt to challenge myself by, say, eliminating or trying to do runs without certain members. So certainly I'm going to try and do a run without Pacal, and maybe a run without Jean, and maybe a run without both of them, which will certainly be very interesting to try out, especially on hard mode. So look forward to these. I will, if it's not obvious already, I'm only going to be posting the successful runs that I've sort of just played through in my spare time. So if you're looking for me to be annoyed or to be in woe over that unlucky dice roll, I do apologize. That's not going to be happening. So yeah, look forward to the following videos. Yeah, look forward to the next few videos. And if you enjoyed this content, please feel free to hit the like button. Of course, feel free to subscribe if you'd like to see more. And with that, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.